The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. Station Prime was the meeting place for all the galaxy's important species. Its crystal walls caught starlight and made rainbow patterns on the polished floors. Inside the main council chamber, beings from 50 different worlds gathered for the quarterly trade meeting. Jack Morrison stood at the human delegation spot, wearing his best diplomatic uniform. The blue fabric with Earth's symbol looked plain next to the shimmering robes and biosuits of the other species. He had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now, and he knew exactly what would happen next. The Valari delegation entered the room like they owned it. Their wings, thin as paper but strong as steel, reflected the light in waves of green and gold. Ambassador Kretak, the lead Valari, looked at Jack with those compound eyes that saw in all directions. The expression on the alien's face was easy to read. It was the same look someone might give to a child who had wandered into an adult conversation. "The humans are here again," Kretak said to his companion, not bothering to lower his voice. The translator device made sure Jack heard every word clearly. Perhaps this time they will understand their place in the galactic order. Behind Jack, Captain Lisa Grant stood perfectly still. Her hand rested on the ceremonial blade at her hip. It was supposed to be just for show, a cultural symbol that all species were allowed to carry. But Lisa's blade was sharp enough to cut through steel, and she knew how to use it. Her brown eyes tracked every movement in the room, marking exits, counting potential threats, measuring distances. The meeting began with the usual formalities. The Korthax delegation, massive beings made of living rock and silicon, rumbled their greetings. The Zilani, with their 4 arms and pale blue skin, clicked their agreement to the agenda. Dozens of other species added their voices to the mix. When it came time for humanity to speak, Jack simply nodded. He had learned that saying less meant fewer opportunities for the others to mock Earth's young civilization. The trade discussions started badly and got worse. The Valari wanted to reduce Earth's mining rights in the asteroid belt near Jupiter. They claimed humans were taking too much, disrupting the careful balance of resource distribution. Jack knew the truth. Earth was taking exactly its fair share. But the Valari wanted those asteroids for themselves. Humans lack the technology to properly process trilithium anyway, Kretak said, his wings buzzing with what Jack had learned was laughter. It would be better used by species who understand its true value. The Korthax representative, a being called Granite Voice, added his opinion. Earth vessels are slow and inefficient. They require 3 times the fuel of Valari ships to travel, the same distance. Perhaps humans should focus on their own solar system until they develop better technology. Jack smiled and nodded. We appreciate the Council's concern for our development. Earth will consider the proposed changes to our mining quota. Lisa watched her ambassador accept the insults with grace. She knew what the aliens didn't. Every human ship had hidden compartments. Every cargo vessel had weapon systems that stayed, powered down during inspections. Every piece of technology the aliens had shared with humanity, thinking they were helping primitive beings, had been taken apart, studied, and improved. 3 years ago, when humanity first joined the Galactic Council, Earth's leaders had made a decision. They would play weak. They would accept bad deals and unfair treatment. They would let the other species think humans were soft and stupid, all while learning everything they could about their new neighbors. The meeting continued for hours. The Zilani demanded more favorable exchange rates for their quantum processors, claiming humans didn't understand their true worth. The Korthax wanted human agricultural products at lower prices, saying Earth's crops were inferior anyway. Each species took their turn pushing humanity down, taking a little more, giving a little less. Jack agreed to everything with a patient smile. Inside his mind, he added each insult to the long list he had been keeping. Every broken promise, every unfair deal, every moment of disrespect was carefully documented and sent back to Earth. After the meeting, Jack and Lisa walked through the station's public areas. Aliens of all kinds moved past them, most not even noticing the humans. Those who did look at them showed either pity or amusement. Poor humans, their expressions seemed to say, so eager to join the galactic community, so unprepared for its realities. They passed a group of young Valari who buzzed with laughter as the humans walked by. One of them said something about Deathworlders, and the whole group laughed harder. It was the great joke of the galaxy. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that no civilized species could survive there. Yet its inhabitants were weak and peaceful. The irony was apparently hilarious. Lisa's jaw tightened, but she kept walking. She thought about her training back on Earth. The gravity there was 3 times what it was on this station. She wore weighted bands on her arms and legs to keep her muscles from atrophying in the weak artificial gravity. If she took them off, she could move faster than any Valari could track with their compound eyes. She could bend steel with her bare hands. She could survive injuries that would kill most aliens instantly, but not yet. The time wasn't right yet. That night, in their quarters, Jack made his report to Earth. The secure quantum communicator connected him directly to General Roy Palmer in the Pentagon's new Exo Affairs Division. "How much longer?" Jack asked, tiredness creeping into his voice. "Soon," Palmer replied. "The World Council is reviewing the situation. We've learned their languages, mapped their trade routes, studied their weapons. Every insult, every theft, disguised as negotiation, every broken treaty has been documented. When we reveal ourselves, we want the galaxy to understand that we gave them every chance to treat us fairly." Jack nodded. "The Valari are getting bolder. Today they basically called us stupid to our faces." "Let them," Palmer said. "Their arrogance is teaching us everything we need to know about their weaknesses. How's Captain Grant handling the situation?" Jack glanced at Lisa, who was studying star charts on her personal tablet. "She's ready. They all are. Every human on this station is playing their part perfectly, but they're eager to drop the act. Tell them to hold just a little longer. When humanity stops playing nice, we want to make sure the lesson is one the galaxy never forgets." After the call ended, Jack stood by the window looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those points of light was Earth, the death world that had created humanity. The other species saw Earth's violent history, its predators, its diseases, its harsh climate, and wondered how such weak beings had evolved there. They were about to learn the answer. Humans hadn't survived Earth by being weak. They had survived by being the most adaptable, resilient, and when necessary, dangerous species their planet had ever produced. For 3 years, humanity had hidden its true nature, pretending to be harmless while learning everything about their neighbors, the yacht. Peaceful facade was almost over. Jack could feel it like electricity in the air, the tension of a predator about to pounce. Every human in space was waiting for the signal, the moment when they could stop pretending and show the galaxy what Deathworlders were really capable of. The other species thought they were taking advantage of naive newcomers. In reality, they were teaching humanity exactly how to beat them. Every unfair trade deal showed humans where the economic weak points were. Every insult revealed which species would be problems later. Every moment of condescension added to the list of those who would need to learn respect the hard way. Jack smiled as he watched a Valari patrol ship fly past the station. Its pilot probably felt very powerful in that sleek vessel with its energy, weapons, and shield generators. The pilot had no idea that 3 human cargo ships were watching from the darkness, their weapons powered down but ready, their crews trained and eager. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. It was wrong. Captain Dan Foster checked his instruments for the 3rd time. The mining vessel Horizon's Edge drifted through the Kepler 4M42 system, its cargo hold full of trilithium crystals. 3 months of hard work had filled the storage bays with the rare material that powered faster than light drives across the galaxy. Now they were heading home to Earth with their prize. The crew of 40 humans worked quietly at their stations. They all knew they were being watched. The Valari had been following them for 2 days, keeping just at the edge of sensor range. Dan wasn't worried, not yet. The Valari often shadowed human ships looking for any excuse to claim violations of space law. Then the proximity alarms started screaming. 3 Valari warships dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of the Horizon's Edge. Their weapons were already hot. targeting lasers painting the human vessel in deadly red light. Dan's communication officer, Sam Brooks, looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, they're demanding we prepare to be boarded. They say we violated Valari space and our cargo is forfeit." Dan pulled up the navigation charts. They were nowhere near Valari space. They were in neutral territory following approved shipping lanes. This wasn't a mistake or misunderstanding. This was piracy, plain and simple. "Send a distress signal to Earth," Dan ordered. "Full encryption, priority 1. The main screen lit up with the face of Wing Commander Vextar of the Valari Royal Fleet. The alien's compound eyes glittered with satisfaction. "Human vessel, you will surrender your cargo immediately. Any resistance will result in your destruction. You have 2 minutes to comply." Dan stood from his captain's chair, his face calm. "Wing Commander, we are in neutral space following approved routes. This is an act of piracy. The Galactic Council will hear of this." Vextar's wings buzzed with amusement. "The Council will hear what we tell them, that a human ship, too stupid to navigate properly, wandered into restricted space and had to be impounded for everyone's safety. Your cargo will be put to better use by species who understand its value." On Earth, the distress signal arrived in the Pentagon's war room like a thunderbolt. General Roy Palmer read the data twice, then turned to President Maria Rodriguez, who was watching via secure connection from the White House. "Madam President, the Valari have crossed the line. They're attempting to steal our trilithium shipment. The Horizon's Edge is outnumbered and outgunned, at least as far as the Valari know." Maria Rodriguez had been president for 2 years. She had continued the policy of patience started by her predecessor, waiting for the right moment to reveal humanity's true capabilities. She looked at the gathered military chiefs, scientists, and advisors. Every face showed the same thing. They were ready. They had been ready for months. "General Palmer," she said, her voice carrying the weight of history, "remove all restrictions. Show them why Earth is classified as a death world." Palmer turned to Admiral George Blake, humanity's highest-ranking military officer. Blake had been waiting 3 years for this moment. He picked up the quantum communicator and spoke a single code phrase that would be heard by every hidden human warship in the galaxy. "The chains are broken." In the darkness near the Kepler 442 system, things that looked like asteroids began to move. They shed their rock-covered shells, revealing sleek warships underneath. The USS Retribution, commanded by Captain Amy Chen, had been hiding in the system for 6 months, disguised as space debris. 40 other ships emerged from their hiding spots, their true forms revealed for the first time. Amy stood on her bridge, watching as her weapons officer brought all systems online. They had reverse-engineered Valari shield technology, Korthax, armor plating, and Zelani targeting systems. Then they had improved them all, combining alien technology with human innovation. "All ships, this is Captain Chen. The Horizon's Edge is under attack. We are authorized to use all necessary force. Remember your training, and remember what these bastards have put us through for 3 years. Time to show them what humans can. Really do." Back on the Horizon's Edge, Dan was stalling for time. Vextar had sent a boarding party of 20 Valari warriors. They moved through the human ship's corridors with casual confidence, their energy weapons drawn but held loosely. They expected no resistance from the weak humans. They found the human crew gathered in the cargo bay, standing in neat lines with their hands visible. The Valari warriors buzzed with laughter. Humans were so predictable, so easy to intimidate. The lead warrior, Sub-Commander Crixon, approached Dan. "You have made the smart choice, human. Your cargo is now property of the Valari Empire. You should feel honored that your primitive mining efforts will contribute to a superior civilization." Dan smiled. It wasn't the nervous smile of a defeated captain. It was the smile of a predator that had just heard the dinner bell ring. "Sub-Commander, I should warn you about something," Dan said calmly. "Warn me?" Crixon buzzed with amusement. "What could you possibly warn me about?" "Well," Dan said, checking his watch, "in about 30 seconds you're going to learn why humans wear weighted suits and metabolic suppressors in your presence. We didn't want to scare you." Before Crixon could respond, every human in the cargo bay moved at once. They stripped off their weighted bands and pressed buttons on their suits that had been disguised as decoration. The suppressors that kept their metabolism slow, that made them seem sluggish and weak, shut down with a soft hiss. What happened next would be remembered in Valari history as the 17-minute nightmare. Humans moved at speeds the Valari couldn't track. In Earth's heavy gravity, humans had evolved redundant muscle fibers, reinforced bones, and a cardiovascular system that could pump oxygen-rich blood at incredible pressure. In the lighter gravity of the ship, with their limiters removed, they were terrifying. Dan grabbed Crixon's weapon hand and squeezed. The Valari's exoskeleton, which could stop most energy weapons, cracked like an eggshell. The alien screamed, a high-pitched buzz that echoed through the cargo bay. Other humans were already moving, disarming and disabling the boarding party with brutal efficiency. Outside, Captain Amy Chen's fleet arrived like angels of death. The Valari warships, so confident moments before, suddenly found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. Amy's voice crackled over the open communication channels. Valari vessels, this is Captain Chen of the United Earth Navy. You have committed an act of piracy against a human vessel. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Vextar couldn't believe his compound eyes. 40 human warships had appeared from nowhere, and their energy signatures were impossible. They were using Valari shield technology, but the power readings were 3 times what they should be. The weapons charging on those ships included designs from half a dozen species, all modified and improved. This is impossible, Vextar buzzed to his bridge crew. Humans don't have a military fleet, they're peaceful traders and miners. His tactical officer pulled up the scans again. Sir, these ships have been hidden in the system for months. They were disguised as asteroids and debris. We've been tricked. Vextar tried to open fire, but human electronic warfare specialists had already infiltrated his ship's computers. Every shot went wide. Every shield fluctuated at the wrong frequency. His proud warship, the pride of the Valari fleet, was helpless. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. The same amount of time it took Dan's crew to subdue the boarding party. When it was over, 3 Valari warships floated dead in space, their crews captured, their weapons destroyed. Not a single human had been killed. Captain Amy Chen opened a channel to the Valari homeworld. She knew the Queen herself would be watching, along with every major power in the galaxy. The age of human deception was over. Your Majesty, Amy said formally, your ships have committed an act of piracy against humanity. We have defeated them and taken their crews prisoner. They will be returned to you unharmed because humans, unlike Valari, have honor. But let this be a warning. We are done pretending to be weak. We are done accepting your insults and theft. Earth is a death world, and you're about to learn what that really means. The footage of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species watched in shock as human soldiers moved faster than seemed possible, as human ships appeared from nowhere with impossible technology, as the mighty Valari were defeated in minutes by a race everyone had dismissed as weak. On station, Prime, Jack Morrison received the news with grim satisfaction. He turned to Lisa Grant, who was already smiling. It's time, she said. Jack nodded. Tomorrow he would stand before the Galactic Council and reveal the truth about humanity. The peaceful facade was shattered. The galaxy was about to meet the real humans, the ones who had survived Earth not by being weak, but by being the most dangerous species their hostile world had ever produced. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Every ambassador, representative, and aide from 50 different species sat frozen in their seats, staring at the human delegation. Jack Morrison stood at the center podium, but he was not alone this time. 50 human warriors flanked him, their powered armor gleaming with weapons and technology from every major civilization in the galaxy. The armor itself was a statement. Valari biometal formed the base, but it was enhanced with Korthax energy shields, Zelani quantum processors, and dozen other alien technologies. Each piece had been improved beyond its original specifications. The humans had taken the best the galaxy had to offer and made it better. Jack looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes or optical organs of each delegation. The Volari sat in shocked silence, their wings trembling with barely controlled fear. The Korthax representatives, usually so confident in their massive size, seemed to shrink in their seats. The Zilani clicked nervously among themselves, their forearms gesturing in confusion. For 3 years, Jack began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Humanity has attended these meetings. We have accepted unfair trade agreements. We have tolerated insults to our intelligence. We have allowed you to mock us as weak primitives from a death world who somehow stumbled into space travel. He paused, letting his words sink in. Captain Lisa Grant stood behind him, her helmet removed, her brown eyes scanning the crowd. Without her limiter suit, she stood taller, moved smoother, radiated a dangerous grace that made several nearby aliens unconsciously lean away from her. Today, that changes, Jack continued. The Volari's attempted piracy of our vessel was the final insult. You have seen the footage of what happened when we stopped pretending to be weak. Now you will learn the full truth about humanity. A holographic display materialized above the podium. It showed Earth in all its deadly glory. Hurricanes ravaged coastlines. Volcanoes erupted with devastating force. Earthquakes shattered cities. The images shifted to show Earth's wildlife. Lions taking down prey. Sharks hunting in blood-filled water. Microscopic viruses that could kill in days. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Jack said. The highest classification possible for a planet that still supports life. Our gravity is 3 times the galactic average. Our atmosphere is filled with corrosive oxygen. Our star bombards us with radiation that would kill most of you in minutes. We have over 10,000 species of predators, millions of deadly microorganisms, and weather patterns that can level entire continents. Dr. Helen Wright stepped forward, humanity's chief xenobiologist. She was a small woman by human standards, but without her suppressors, she moved with a fluid strength that caught every eye. Let me explain what this means biologically, Helen said, activating her own display. To survive on Earth, humans evolved redundant organs. We have 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, a liver that can regenerate, and a digestive system that can process almost anything organic. Our bones are reinforced with calcium structures 5 times denser than Volari exoskeletons. Our muscles use a double helix fiber pattern that generates force you cannot imagine. She showed a comparative analysis. A Volari warrior at peak performance could lift 200 pounds in standard gravity. A human child could lift that much by age 12. An adult human without enhancement could lift 800 pounds. With adrenaline, a natural combat drug all humans produced, that number tripled. But physical strength is only part of the story, Helen continued. Humans evolved something far more dangerous. We developed intelligence not in spite of our hostile world, but because of it. We had to become smart enough to predict disasters, creative enough to survive them, and ruthless enough to climb to the top of our food chain. The display showed human history. Wars that had killed millions, weapons that could crack atoms and destroy cities. Humans had been killing each other with increasingly creative methods for thousands of years. They had practiced warfare against their own kind until they had perfected it into an art form. Ambassador Kretak of the Volari finally found his voice. This is impossible. If you are so powerful, why pretend to be weak? Why accept our demands? Jack smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Because we learned something from our history. The most effective victory is the one where your enemy defeats themselves. For 3 years you taught us everything we needed to know about you. You shared your technology, thinking you were helping primitives. You showed us your trade routes, your military positions, your political weak points. You revealed everything while learning nothing about us. He gestured to the warriors around him. One of them stepped forward and removed his helmet. It was Colonel Paul Chen, one of humanity's most decorated soldiers. His face was scarred from battles on Earth that would have killed any alien in the chamber. Every human ship you saw was operating at 10% capacity, Paul said. Every human you met was wearing limiters to slow our movements and suppress our strength. We wore weighted suits to make us seem sluggish. We took metabolic suppressors to appear weak. We pretended to need sleep cycles you could predict, food you could understand, medical care you could provide. The colonel touched his armor and weapons emerged from hidden compartments. Blades that could cut through steel. Energy weapons that combined 6 different alien technologies. Projectile weapons that used magnetic acceleration beyond anything the galaxy had seen. We studied your combat techniques, Paul continued. The Volari rely on aerial mobility, but their wings are vulnerable to frequency disruption. The Korthax trust their rocky hides, but they're brittle when exposed to rapid temperature changes. The Zilani use quantum prediction algorithms, but they can't account for human unpredictability because our brains don't work like yours. Granite voice of the Korthax rumbled to life. You dare threaten the Council? No, Jack said simply. We're done with threats. Threats are what weak species make when they're afraid. We're simply explaining reality. Humanity is done pretending. We will take our rightful place in the galaxy, as equals or as conquerors. The choice is yours. The display changed again, showing the hidden human fleet. Not 40 ships, but 400. They had been building in secret for 3 years, using asteroid mining operations as cover. Each ship was a hybrid of technologies, a combination that shouldn't work but did, because humans had figured out how to make different species' equipment work together. You called us Deathworlders as an insult, Lisa Grant said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was calm but carried an edge that made several ambassadors flinch. You were right, but you didn't understand what it meant. We come from a world that tries to kill us every day. We survived, we thrived. We conquered our planet and made it serve us. Now we're in space and the same rules apply. She walked to the center of the chamber, her movements predatory. On Earth we have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. For 3 years we spoke softly. We were diplomatic. We were patient. We were nice. That time is over. Now you see the stick. The Zilani ambassador, a being called Forethoughts, raised one of its 4 hands. What do you want from us? Respect, Jack said immediately. Fair trade agreements, equal representation in the Council, recognition as a sovereign power. The same things we've been asking for 3 years, except now we're not asking. He pulled up the treaty documents that humanity had prepared. These are our terms. Mining rights that reflect actual fairness. Trade routes that don't charge humans extra fees. Military access to the same systems every other Council species enjoys. Technology sharing that goes both ways. An end to the mockery and condescension. And if we refuse? Kretok asked, though his voice had lost its usual arrogance. Jack looked at him with an expression that had been worn by human generals throughout history. It was the look of someone who had already won and was simply waiting for their opponent to realize it. Then we'll take what we want anyway, Jack said. But you'll make it harder on yourselves. We've survived ice ages, plagues, nuclear war, and climate collapse. We've fought creatures that would give you nightmares and won. We've turned a death world into our home. Do you really think a collection of species who've had it easy on paradise worlds can stop us? The chamber erupted in nervous conversation. Species that had never agreed on anything were suddenly whispering about the human threat. But Jack wasn't finished. We don't want to be your enemies, he said, raising his voice to cut through the noise. Humans are capable of something most species find impossible. We can pack bond with anything. We make friends with predators we should fear. We keep poisonous creatures as pets. We form emotional connections with machines. We could be your greatest allies, your protectors, your friends. Or we can be the nightmare that came from the death world. You choose. The vote was called immediately. There was no debate, no stalling, no political maneuvering. Every species in the chamber could see the humans standing there, weapons visible, strength undisguised. The facade of weakness finally dropped. They remembered the footage of the Volari defeat. 17 minutes to destroy 3 warships that should have been unstoppable. The vote was unanimous. Every single species voted to accept humanity's terms. Even the Volari, their pride shattered, raised their wings in agreement. 6 months had passed since humanity revealed its true nature to the galaxy. The change was visible everywhere. Trade routes that had been plagued by pirates for decades were now clean and safe. The reason floated in the void between stars. The first human fleet, led by Captain Lisa Grant, now Admiral Grant, patrolled the shipping lanes with ruthless efficiency. Her flagship, the UES Perseverance, was a masterpiece of hybrid technology. The hull was Korthak's living metal that could heal itself. The shields were Volari energy barriers improved with human mathematical models. The weapons were a terrifying mix of everything humanity had learned, plus innovations that made other species nervous. The ship could appear from nowhere, strike with overwhelming force, and vanish before enemies knew what hit them. Lisa stood on her bridge, reading reports from across human space. Where once humanity had controlled a few mining colonies and one small section of space, they now held territory equal to any major power. They hadn't conquered it. They had simply claimed what had always been rightfully theirs, and no one had dared to stop them. Admiral, her communications officer, Lieutenant Carl Young, called out, "We're receiving a distress signal from a Zilani colony. They're under attack by raiders." Lisa didn't hesitate. "Set course immediately. Maximum speed." The Perseverance jumped to hyperspace, its improved drive systems cutting travel time by 70% compared to standard vessels. They arrived at the Zilani colony in 12 minutes instead of the 40 it should have taken. The raiders, a mixed group of outcasts from various species, were in the middle of bombarding the colony's defensive shields. Lisa opened a channel to the raiders. Her face appeared on their screens, and she saw several of them step back in fear. Her reputation had spread across the galaxy. The human woman who had stood in the Galactic Council chamber and made the assembled representatives of 50 species afraid. "This is Admiral Grant of the human fleet," she said calmly. "You have 30 seconds to surrender. This is your only warning." The raider captain, a scarred Korthax who had been expelled from his clan, tried to laugh. It sounded forced. "One ship against 12? Even humans aren't that stupid." Lisa smiled. It was the expression that had become famous across the galaxy, the smile of a predator that knew exactly how the hunt would end. "Who said we brought one ship?" Space around the raiders rippled. 10 human vessels dropped out of stealth mode, their weapons already locked on targets. The raiders hadn't even known they were there. Human stealth technology, adapted from 6 different species and improved beyond recognition, made their ships invisible to most sensors. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Lisa was disappointed it took that long, but she wanted to minimize casualties. The raiders were captured, their ships disabled but not destroyed, their crews alive but defeated. It was a message to the galaxy that humans could show mercy, but only when they chose to. On the surface of the colony, the Zilani colonists watched human drop troops fall from the sky. They wore no pods, no protective shells, just their armor, falling through the atmosphere like meteors. The friction of entry turned them into fireballs, but the suits held. They landed hard enough to crack concrete but stood up immediately, weapons ready, scanning for threats. The colony administrator, a Zilani named 3 Minds, approached the human squad leader carefully. The human removed his helmet, revealing a young face with kind eyes. It was Sergeant Jake Williams, 23 years old, from a farming family in Kansas. "Are you hurt?" Jake asked, his voice gentle. This was the part that confused every species about humans. They could be terrifying in battle, then immediately turn around and show genuine concern for others. "We are unharmed thanks to you," 3 Minds said, his forearms gesturing gratitude. "We thought we would die today." Jake smiled, and it was nothing like the predator smiles the aliens had learned to fear. This was warm, genuine, human. "Not on our watch. We're setting up a temporary garrison here until your defenses are repaired. Nobody's going to hurt you while we're around." This scene repeated itself across the galaxy. Human forces appeared wherever there was trouble, struck with overwhelming force, then immediately turned to helping rebuild and protect. It was a strategy as old as Earth itself. Show strength, then show kindness. Make them fear you, then make them grateful. On the frontier world of Nexus 7, a different story was unfolding. The planet was a mining colony, shared between humans and several other species. The mines were dangerous, the equipment old and failing. Today, a support tunnel had collapsed, trapping 30 Korthax miners a mile underground. The rescue team, included humans and the other species, watched in amazement as they worked. The humans didn't need the heavy machinery the others required. They lifted fallen rocks that weighed tons, their muscles straining but holding. They worked in toxic air that would kill others in minutes, their enhanced lungs filtering out the poisons. Young Charlie Cooper, the son of a miner from Earth, was first to reach the trapped Korthax. He had crawled through a space too small for the rock beings to fit, his flexible human spine bending in ways that seemed impossible. When he found them, several were badly injured, their rocky hides cracked and leaking the fluid that served as their blood. Without hesitation, Charlie began medical treatment. Humans had spent 3 years learning the biology of every council, species, preparing for moments like this. He sealed cracks with emergency foam, injected stabilizing compounds, and kept the wounded alive until the tunnel could be widened. When the Korthax were finally brought to the surface, their clan leader, Granite Voice's cousin Stonesinger, approached Charlie. The young human was exhausted, covered in rock dust and Korthax blood fluid, but he stood straight and met the alien's eyes. "You risked your life for us," Stonesinger rumbled, his voice filled with confusion. "We have not been kind to your species. Why would you save us?" Charlie wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of dirt. "Because that's what humans do. We protect people who need protecting, doesn't matter if they like us or not." The footage of the rescue went viral across the galactic network. Every species saw it. Humans, the terrifying Deathworlders who had defeated the Volari in 17 minutes, crawling through toxic tunnels to save miners who had insulted them for years. It didn't make sense to most aliens, but it was perfectly human. In the Galactic Council chambers, now reorganized with humanity, holding a permanent security seat, new agreements were being signed daily. Trade flourished under human protection. Pirates had almost vanished from major shipping lanes, too afraid to risk encountering human patrols. Species that had been enemies for centuries were talking peace, knowing that humans would enforce any treaties they signed. Ambassador Jack Morrison, now Senior Ambassador Morrison with authority over all human diplomatic efforts, met with representatives from a dozen species. They all wanted the same thing now: alliance with humanity. Protection from the Deathworlders who had turned their terrifying nature into a shield for others. The Volari were among the most eager to repair relations. Kreetak had been replaced as ambassador by his daughter Vex Neal, who approached Jack with none of her father's arrogance. "We misjudged you," she said simply, her wings held in a position of submission. "We saw your strength as weakness, your patience as stupidity. We were wrong. The Volari Empire formally requests an alliance with Earth." Jack studied her for a long moment. 3 years ago, the Volari had treated humans like insects. Now they came asking for friendship. It would be easy to refuse, to hold a grudge, to make them suffer as humans had suffered. But that wasn't the human way, not anymore. "We accept," Jack said. "But understand this. We protect our friends. We stand by our allies. Betray us, and you'll learn why our world is classified as a death world. Stay loyal, and you'll have the strongest protectors in the galaxy." The transformation was remarkable. Species that had mocked humans now sought them as allies. Worlds that had refused human colonists now invited them to settle. Technology that had been hidden was now shared freely, though everyone knew humans would probably improve it anyway. But perhaps the most significant change happened on Earth itself. The planet that had been dismissed as a death world became a tourist destination for the brave and curious. Aliens wanted to see the world that had created humanity. They wanted to understand how such a hostile place had produced a species capable of both terrible violence and incredible compassion. They came in small numbers at first, wearing environmental suits that could handle Earth's gravity and atmosphere. They saw the cities that humans had built in defiance of nature. They saw the monuments to wars that had killed millions but led to peace. They saw humans living alongside creatures that should terrify them, keeping wolves as pets, swimming with sharks, climbing mountains that scraped the sky. And slowly they began to understand. Earth hadn't created humans in spite of its hostility. It had created them because of it. Every challenge had made humans stronger. Every disaster had made them more creative. Every predator had made them smarter. Earth had forged humanity in fire and storm, in ice and drought, in disease and war. The death world had created the perfect survivors. And now 20 years had passed since humanity stopped hiding their true nature. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Professor Sam Turner stood in front of his xenosociology class at the University of New Geneva on Mars, looking at the mix of species that filled the lecture hall. Humans sat next to Valari, Korthax shared notes with Zelani, and a dozen other species learned together in peace. Sam was 60 years old now, old enough to remember when humans first ventured into space and were laughed at by these same species. His gray hair and lined face told the story of those early years, but his eyes remained sharp and bright as he began his lecture. "Today we're going to talk about the legend of the Deathworlders," he said, and immediately saw his non-human students shift nervously. Even after 20 years, the term carried weight. Not the facts, which you all know, but the legend. The stories that spread across the galaxy and changed everything. He activated the holographic display, showing a map of the galaxy. Human space was marked in blue, but blue dots appeared everywhere, mixed with the territories of other species. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had become its immune system, present everywhere, protecting everyone. "Let's start with the stories," Sam said. "Every species has them now. Tales of human strength, human cleverness, human compassion. Most are exaggerated, but they all contain a grain of truth. Would anyone like to share one from their culture?" A young Valari raised a wing. Her name was Zixara, and she was the granddaughter of the same Kretak who had once insulted humanity. "My hive tells the story of the Battle of Broken Wings. A single human soldier held a bridge against 100 raiders to protect a Valari nursery. He fought for 6 hours without rest, his armor shattered, his weapons depleted, using nothing but his hands and determination. When reinforcements arrived, he was still standing." Sam nodded. "That was Corporal Pete Johnson. The story is mostly true, though it was 50 raiders, not 100. And he held them for 4 hours, not 6. But yes, he saved 3,000 Valari larvae that day. He lost his left arm in the battle and had it replaced with a cybernetic one. He still sends birthday cards to every one of those larvae he saved." A Korthax student, a young being called Pebble Voice, rumbled his contribution. "We tell of the human miners who taught us the Earth technique of explosion. They showed us how to use controlled destruction to create rather than destroy. Now our mining efficiency has increased by 300%. Demolition expertise," Sam said with a smile. "Humans have been blowing things up creatively for thousands of years. We just taught you how to do it with purpose." The stories continued. A Zelani spoke of human medics who could work for days without sleep to save lives. A smaller species called the Rillan told of human engineers who could fix anything with basic tools and determination. Each story grew in the telling, but each started with truth. "But the real legend," Sam said, "isn't about our strength or cleverness, it's about the choice we made. We could have conquered the galaxy. Once we revealed our true capabilities, no one could have stopped us. Instead, we chose to protect it. Does anyone know why?" A human student, a young woman named Kate Park, raised her hand. "Because we learned from our mistakes on Earth?" "Partly," Sam agreed, "but there's more to it. Humans have a unique trait among known species. We pack bond with anything. We make friends with our food animals before eating them. We name our vehicles and mourn when they break. We can form emotional connections with any species, any individual, even artificial intelligences. That's our real superpower." He pulled up images from the last 20 years. Human soldiers carrying injured aliens to safety. Human doctors working in plague zones that would kill them without their suits. Human teachers sharing knowledge with species that had once mocked them. Human children playing with alien youngsters, no fear between them. "The galaxy feared us when we revealed our strength," Sam continued. "But they came to love us when we showed our hearts. We're the species that will fight to the death for strangers, who will share our last meal with an enemy, who will forgive those who wronged us if they show genuine remorse. The door to the lecture hall opened, and Admiral Lisa Grant walked in. She was older now, her brown hair streaked with silver, but she still moved with the deadly grace that had made her famous. The non-human students immediately straightened in their seats. Even after 20 years, she was a living legend. "Sorry to interrupt, Professor," Lisa said, "but we've just received a first contact message from a new species beyond the outer rim. They've heard the stories about humanity and are requesting our protection before they'll agree to meet with the Galactic Council." Sam wasn't surprised. This had been happening more frequently in recent years. New species would make contact specifically asking for humans, having heard the legends from traders and explorers. They wanted the Deathworlders as friends, not enemies. "Class, this is a perfect example of what we've been discussing," Sam said. "Admiral, would you mind sharing the message?" Lisa activated her personal display, showing the communication. The new species called themselves the Yenti. They were small, furry creatures from a low-gravity world, exactly the kind of species that would have been exploited by the old Galactic Order. Their message was simple but telling. "We have heard of the humans, the Deathworlders who protect the weak. We have heard how you defeated the mighty but chose mercy. We have heard how you share knowledge and defend those who cannot defend themselves. We wish to join the galactic community, but only if humanity will guarantee our safety." The students murmured among themselves. 20 years ago, the idea of a new species specifically requesting human protection would have been absurd. Now it was common. "What will we do?" Zixara asked. Lisa smiled, and it was the warm smile that allies saw, not the predator's grin that enemies feared. "We'll do what we always do. We'll send a diplomatic team to make contact. We'll send a military escort to ensure their safety. We'll share our technology and knowledge. We'll protect them while they find their place in the galaxy. Because that's what humans do." She turned to address the whole class. "Each of you will graduate into a galaxy shaped by humanity's choice. We could have been conquerors. We chose to be guardians. We could have been tyrants. We chose to be teachers. This is the legend you'll carry forward." After Lisa left, Sam continued his lecture, but his mind was on the broader implications. The legend of humanity had spread so far that species they'd never met knew about them. Stories of human strength, ingenuity, and compassion had traveled faster than light, carried by traders and explorers to the farthest reaches of space. In the outer rim, on trade stations and frontier worlds, the stories grew with each telling. Pirates spoke in hushed voices about human berserkers who could fight for days without rest, their bodies producing combat chemicals that turned them into unstoppable forces. Traders told of human engineers who could repair a hyperdrive with nothing but spare parts and determination. Diplomats shared tales of human negotiators who could read micro-expressions across species barriers, knowing when someone was lying before they finished speaking. Some stories were pure fiction, but they all started with a seed of truth. Humans really were stronger than most species. They really could survive injuries that would kill others. They really did form emotional bonds with anything and everything, and most importantly, they really had chosen to use their advantages to protect rather than conquer. On Earth itself, now a destination for millions of alien visitors each year, the transformation was complete. The planet that had been dismissed as a death world was now seen as a forge of heroes. Young beings from across the galaxy came to Earth to study, to train, to understand how such a hostile world had created such a remarkable species. They climbed mountains in environmental suits, amazed that humans did it for fun. They watched hurricanes from safe bunkers, terrified that humans would sometimes stay in their homes through such storms. They visited Australia, the continent that even other humans joked about being deadly, and saw humans living happily among creatures that could kill with a touch. And slowly they understood. Earth hadn't created humans to be cruel. It had created them to be survivors. And survivors, true survivors, understood that cooperation was stronger than competition, that protecting others meant protecting yourself, that the greatest strength was the ability to choose not to use it. As Sam finished his lecture, he looked at his mixed species class and felt hope for the future. These young beings would carry forward the legend of humanity, but more importantly, they would carry forward The lesson. Strength without compassion was just brutality. Power without protection was just tyranny. But when you combined human strength with human hearts, you got something the galaxy had never seen before. Remember, Sam said as his students prepared to leave, the legend isn't that humans are unbeatable. The legend is that we chose to be protectors. Every species in this room has that same choice. You can be predators or protectors, conquerors or guardians. Humanity showed you what we chose. Now you must choose for yourselves. As the students filed out, discussing the lecture in a dozen different languages, Sam looked out the window at the red Martian landscape.